Oh, my friends, it is Thanksgiving morning as I shoot this video, so it obviously won't be Thanksgiving when I post this video, but, I've been telling you all for the last week or so or a couple weeks that I had went ahead and bit the bullet and ordered this TRO. Uh, I have done reviews on the ones I own, except for I have 3057 and 3060 yet to do. So when last year, I started to get my interest in BattleTech started to rebound when I started reviewing some of my material for my channel. And I started thinking, geez, I wonder what's really, what's going on? How much did I miss in 20 years? I've missed a lot. And some of it isn't the end of the day, and some of it is terrible. There's a lot of material that I obviously can't purchase now because it was a one runoff or a handful of prints, and if you can find copies of it on the internet, they're usually hideously expensive, way outside of my budget. And as much as I'd like to, I can't afford to get everything. And then there's stuff that do I buy now? And when you're dealing with a budget, your money's important to you and things run for you. You can't buy anything anymore book wise in this line of stuff that isn't going to cost you $40-50. And anyway, so I did a little bit of review because I bought the TRO for the Succession Wars. And I think I'll do a video on that here in the near future. I will get it out, and then I will get the others out, the originals that I have, just to kind of give you a glance for those who don't know. But the TRO Succession Wars is an awesome investment for you if you do not have older material like I do and some of us do, because all it is basically a reprint of the old stuff. And if there's any real changes in there, I didn't notice it, or it's minuscule. It's not worth the $40-50 I paid for it when I could have used that money to purchase something I didn't have. And I was lucky here recently to get was it Humble Bumble Humble Bumble bundle that Red had mentioned on his channel, and I went and looked at, and for $30 I got a whole bunch of like 30 things, 30 things, including the Ilkland sourcebook PDF, which I didn't have the Ilkland hardbook. I didn't have the money at the time to purchase it, and so I got it pretty cheap, and then I took it to the shop and used the Xerox up there and printed it out. Now I need to put it in some plastic folder or into a binder so I can actually use it as a book. Like I said, PDFs are difficult for me because I have a tiny little cell phone. I can't put them on there, and it doesn't have the memory capacity to handle them or any significant number of them, and so they have to be on my laptop, and I'm not bringing this laptop with me to work. Now I have an older laptop behind it. Potentially I could probably load them up to that and bring that to work, but then I'm in my truck. It's a hot mess on a good day because of the type of job I do. I risk getting grease into everything, and the books are much easier to protect than something like the laptop. If it falls off of the seat or bounces off of the dash, or I just isn't going. I'm not. It's just not something I can do. And yes, I could get a pad, and pads are moderately cheap, but we're back to how do I support it. I just can't justify the expense for doing it right now. I mean, I'm not sure I could ever justify the expense. Truth is, my laptop I'm currently using, I bought with StimPack with some money in 20. So we're coming up on 2 years on this thing, and it really is. I don't know. It's starting to develop a few quirks. The keys are starting to wear a little bit, and I'm not sure. I know I need to replace it probably sooner than later, but how I'm going to come up with the money to pay for that just now, I mean, I'm wrestling with it. I really am. Anyway, so I saw some guys' other videos on this particular source book, this Terra, and then I went and I Googled Sarda and I Googled CGL and read what I could. Now I love Catalyst games for the most part. Don't get me wrong, but no offense, Catalyst, you guys do a shitty job of explaining what it is you're selling. Your little bit of blurbs on your website or do not do us justice. So there are times when you think you're buying something, it turns out to be totally shit. or totally something you already own, or something it does not fit what you think it should fit based on that little paragraphs that are there. And you can do better. And don't pretend like you can't do better, because you can. I'm just pointing out that you're dependent on other people doing the reviews of your material for you. And if we can't find those reviews, because you might, not like you're going to say, hey, here's a couple of reviewers who reviewed this item. What do you think? Go and see what their opinion is. No, we're not going to go down that hole. That's not something you want to do. That's fine. Anyway, so I determined that this, unlike the Succession Wars, which basically everything in that TRO I already have. This I have a bunch of stuff in here I don't have. And mech-wise, I mean, this is great for if you're in the combat scenario stuff, if you're going in and doing the mech battles and tabletop war game, because this just gives you a whole plethora of new designs to put in the field and to play with and to test. From a lore perspective and story perspective, if you follow the novels and things like this gives you a little bit more depth and information on the machines that they're using. Once again, it's a matter of what your reasons for using the books are and what your plans are. Now, one of the first things that caught my mind, or caught my attention, was this one. And it was not this specific machine, but concepts like this, that in 2002 or in 2003, when FASO bellied up and WizKids, FanPro, whatever started to take over, I started hearing renditions of this time shift. Everything leapt forward 60 years. They left a whole slew of stories and storylines untied. Well, that happens when you transition from one company to another, that things fall apart. Things have to be rebuilt, and it's not practical to expect the next guy to just simply pick up where the previous guy left off. We would like them to do that, and they try to do that to a limited level, because when Catalyst took over from WizKids, it was a much smoother transition from what I can tell. It wasn't as radically changing. It could have been, but it wasn't. So I started hearing rumors of all the regular mech factories, everybody, giving up all the factions giving up their war machines because one grand republic had taken over the inner sphere. And that's what I'd heard. And then I started seeing a couple images of logger mechs and industrial mechs with strapped on weapons, and I'm thinking, oh God, I don't know what is this crap. And then the stories, none of the handful of Dark Age novels I started to read made absolutely no sense to me, because, like I said, keeping in mind they'd leapt forward 60 years, and there was no context. There was no no major source book being produced to tell everybody, hey, this is where we're at. They just changed gear and threw everything out there and expected us to eat it and go forward. And I think it cost them a lot more than they expected. And if they didn't care, well, F you and F them. I mean, not you specifically, but F them. It is what it is. That's part my fault and part the realities of the change. So when I run across this one, I thought, geez, so this is one of those carryovers from that era. Because I was expecting to be honest, I was expecting an entire source book of this sort of stuff, and I was kind of grimacing a little bit. But when the reviews I'd seen, the video I'd seen showed me that I wasn't quite there. But there's a lot of good stuff in here. It also kind of amused me because the one weapon system that they did mount to this industrial machine, this logger mech, is an AC2, an autocannon 2, the one that most people hate. It's just, well, we got so many, and it makes sense, because if you have warehouses of autocannon 2s laying around because they're the least loved of the mech scale weaponry, it would make sense these are some of the first things that they find to strap onto something else to put it back in the field. And I guess it's just me. You gotta get there. The other thing is that when I read the introduction, and it took me a minute to go try to understand exactly where the perspective was coming from, and then it finally sunk in. This is from 3250, so it's another 100 years, roughly 90 years into the yet unspoken future. So if we look at what's being said in here, there's just a couple phrases or a couple parts of a line that make me go, so what have you got planned CGL. What is your plans, Catalyst? And we're not 100% sure. And just like everybody else, they're not 100% sure. You know, it says, like here, in a modern context, this thing is most used to describe the so-called Dark Age era as the 6 to 7 decades between the end of the Blake Jihad and the rise of the Ill Clan. And the Jihad itself was another one of these things that suddenly just came out of nowhere, and it was a hot mess of chaos and very little information and very little novels and source books and any of that stuff. And they're starting to you know, that's being addressed over time. But back when they transitioned from Facet to Fan Pro, oh my God. And there was such a massive impact on the fan, or on the world as we knew it up to that point. You know, it just really, really caused problems. And the fact that there's still a lot of unanswered questions and stuff still irritates some of us, myself being in that group. Then it said here, the blackout was a notable event, but the decades of what usually ascribed to being part of the Dark Age. Conversely, the effects of the blackout did not magically disappear with the rise of the Ill Clan and lingered until 7 years after the last annihilation. So we have the Ill Clan era in place. What the hell is the last annihilation? Is that what plan? You know, I've heard rumors of this lost command, this 3250, where the Ill Clan basically comes up and dominates the inner sphere, and all the factions kowtow, bow to, or join until you get a handful of rebels fighting against the machine. Ooh, good luck with that one, Catalyst. I think even that you guys are going to find that one's going to be hard one to sell. Anyway, so, you know, once again, there are plenty of channels out there that produce awesome videos on individual mech designs, and I'm not even going to try to compete with those. I mean, I would never be able to pull them off very well, not to the level that they're doing. I would, not to say who knows. I should never say never, because who knows, 5 years down the road when I've done everything I can do and I start running out of ideas, maybe I'd do my version of those just to keep crap flowing on the channel. I mean, I do that now with my Game Not Traveled and other things, just to get some trying to get stuff put out every day or every other day, and help try to promote the growth of the channel. It's a thing. I don't know why, right? So anyway, not a whole lot there for me to really go on, because I don't, like I said, I've read some stuff, I've got my opinions on it. This is a good book. If you're an older guy like me, this is worth your money. I honestly believe this is worth the add to your collection. If you're one of the newer generation of players or new to the system, once again, this is an excellent addition. I mean, I find it ironic that there are so many mech designs available, but there are I don't know that you'll find every mech design ever created in a mini version. I don't know. But what I do know is part of that Humble Bumble, or whatever the hell it was I ordered in pot, was a code for a free copy of BattleTech's beginner box. All I had to do was go to the CGL, pay for the shipping with $7, $7.58 or something like that, and enter the code. And I got a confirmation in my email yesterday, or day before yesterday, that they've shipped it. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be my first actual box set in over 20 years. And the first time I've had anything in the way of a modern version of the BattleTech rule system in the beginner. So it's an app system for me to look at, and I don't know, maybe find a time to figure out a way to play it with some people. I've discovered that at Mayhem Comics, this is the place where I occasionally stop and pick up books, or at least look at books. That every Monday evening at 5 o'clock they have a BattleTech group that meets, and if I can find a way to slip out there, I'd like to get in and just kind of look at it, if nothing else. It's so hard for me to do things like that because it just is. Anyway, I was out there the other day, and I was between two jobs, and this is what they got. They got a handful of BattleTech crap. I mean, seriously, there's like, what, 3 box sets of minis, and of course my camera's sideways. Isn't that great? I don't know if there's a way. I'd have to change that up. I don't know if I could change that in such a manner to change, or to Let's see if I can go back here. All right, yeah, it's turned on the side, but you can see there is an operational manual for space combat. There's a couple maps, and there's the other TRO for the Succession Wars there next to it, or no, the Clan Invasion. And I looked at the Clan Invasion, drew some videos, reviews of other people's stuff, strategic operations for space combat or something. And then there's a map. There's a map there on the lower corner there, and two TROs. The one is the Jihad that's in my hand, and that I decided to buy, and took a risk. And I was surprised that it is something that I don't have. It has some more information and things. So at some point down the road in the near future, I will do a video on it as well. But this one here, marked Clan Invasion, it is basically, from what I can tell, mostly rehashing stuff from 3055 through 3060 source books or TROs. I can't be 100% sure of that because, once again, unless I can open it and actually physically look at it, and this, the sad part is as you can see, all these books are wrapped up, saran wrap, so you can't really do that, and that causes its own set of scenarios and problems. The back when I used to go to Ivor's, when Ivor had it, he always had an open copy. No matter what there was, he would have one where you could get it and you could open it up and you could look through it, you could read it, you could get yourself a really good feel or flavor if it was something you wanted or something you had and didn't have and needed, and so on and so forth. Anyway, that's enough babbling for me. This is BattleTech, the Dark Age. Going on, my friends, this is Rick, and hey, if you like the channel, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, tell your buddies, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, tell anybody else that's in the gaming industry or gaming fandom that says, hey, this is a channel worth checking out.